morning, Ian.
Good morning, Sherman. Nice to see you.
Great to see you. You're in beautiful Colombia. I recognize the background from our last call.
That is correct. The city of Eternal Spring in Medellin.
Well, I'm in the Okanagan, which they say is the California of Canada. And I'll tell you, walking by the beaches here in the Okanagan the last few days has been remarkable. I mean, it looks like Bondi Beach or something in Australia. There's so many people here in the Okanagan.
Yeah, the difference, it looks like this year round here. We don't get the 9 months of bad. Pretty spoiled.
Well, for all of our listeners, I'm here with Ian Harris. Ian Harris is the Chief Executive Officer of Libero Copper. Libero is a story that it's one of our top picks in the copper space. So thanks for taking a few minutes this morning, Ian.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Sherman. I always appreciate the chance to talk.
Well, I thought we'd update shareholders and potential shareholders and our listeners on a couple things. I'm really intrigued with what's going on in the copper world in particular. I mean, I look at some of these broad strokes, Ian. You know, we've to date, you know, if my math's right, I think we've mined 700 million tons of copper on this planet, and we're going to need about the same amount, you know, over the next 20 years if we're going to pull off some of these amazing things that need to be done. And it's almost as if humanity's being put to the test, if you will, because we've got, you know, kind of a slowing economy, and we've got commodity prices that people seem to be questioning, like commodities or cryptocurrencies or something of the sort. And Robert Friedland recently said that, you know, where it's the revenge of the old economy. And you know, in my view, this really sets the stage for an amazing potential for a rise in copper prices because of all the fundamentals that are in play. And, you know, for our listeners, I thought, well, here we have an opportunity to chat with the Chief Executive Officer of Libero Copper, who's got an amazing portfolio of copper assets, and maybe just get your thoughts, I guess, this morning on a couple things is just those thoughts about the world of copper, and then maybe just give us an update on Libero, and in particular, I know that you just announced a flow-through share, which we're participating in because we're big believers in Libero Copper, and I know the demand has been strong. I mean, the flow-through component is really attractive for investors, but I think more importantly is the underlying share price. And part of our role is to bring some awareness to investors that take a look at Libero. I mean, at 30 cents a share with the quality of assets that you have, I think it makes it a remarkable buy. So with those two kind of bullet points, I'll hand it over to Ian Harris, the Chief Executive Officer from Libero.
And I'm going to try and take it from long-term vision all the way down to short-term vision. And as background, Sherman, I'm a mining engineer. I've been working in this industry for 25 years. And so sometimes when I have a paradigm shift in my head, I like sharing it, right? Because when we hear, oh, it's going to be 5 quadrillion pounds of copper and blah, 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 and electric vehicles, and it's hard to give that, like, what the sensation of what that really means. Mm-hmm. And, you know, most people are saying that by 2030, we will need 5.4 million tons of copper per year. What does that mean? And say they're wrong. Say it's 3. Say it's 8. But what is 5? What does that mean? Right? The 10 largest copper mines in the world together, right, produce, I think, 5.6 million tons. I think it's 5.8 million tons of copper a year. So that means by 2030, just for electric vehicles, solar cells, wind farm generation, we need the equivalent of the 10 largest mines in the world. And that helps put it in perspective. Okay, maybe they're wrong. Maybe it's 5 of the biggest mines in the world, or it's 20 of the biggest mines in the world. But if everybody's seen these mines are ones that have taken 20, 30 years. There's only been one mine of that top 10 that's been built in the last 20 years. One. Wow. So we get to put it into our perspective, the amount of copper. You put it in another way. We have to mine more copper in the next 20 or 30 years than we've done in the entire history of man. Yeah. Yeah. And then we go, well, wait a second. Maybe this energy transition's just kind of fluff. And I think the other part that people, I mean, whether you believe it or not, most people understand you need to do it to save the planet. Number two is that energy demand only increases every year. There's a limit to how much coal and oil you can. You can't just keep going the same path. So if it's from a save the planet perspective, but it's more than that, right? Per megawatt installed or per kilowatt hour, for the first time in history, solar and wind power is cheaper. So it's the right thing to do. It's the smart economic thing to do. United Kingdom, Europe, United States, Canada, China, all came out and say, we're going for energy transition, right? And it was mostly because it generates work. It generates 2 to 3 times more work than the standard industry. So for all these reasons, it's happening. It's going to happen, right? Yeah. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. And because of that, so bringing it home, right? You look at the industry, you look at all the different projects out there. There's none. There's no projects. And you see a couple winners. You see Filo del Sol, or you see Solaris with Warintza, and they're the star children of the market. But forget it. You need 40 of those, right? You need 20 or 40 of those type of projects, right? So that's where I feel like and that's why I get so excited about the portfolio of projects that we have, because we have those potential to have that tier 1 style project. And when the world starts waking up, they'll see that this was an absolute, people will talk about the day that Libero Copper was trading at 30 cents. They'll all talk about it. I knew the day it was trading at 30 cents. Can you believe it was trading at 30 cents? Because these projects must go. The world needs them, and they will start moving.
Yeah, those are incredible points. And, I go back to, your comments are very true. We're almost at a point in time where we have to, as a humanity, make a decision, because, the amount of pollution and things that are in the world. Like I think I told you in our last call, I was in Kathmandu in Nepal in March, and it was like a gas chamber in Kathmandu just because of the pollution from the electric vehicles. So we're at this very interesting point in humanity where we've got to make this switch. And what's interesting, and you kind of alluded to it, is you need copper to build copper mines. So it's like this circle of feeding on itself, that if we don't get our act together and get these other copper assets, and I guess drill in a little bit into what you said about the tier 1 aspect, maybe just talk about, just really quickly for our listeners, what is a tier 1 asset and why we're so excited about, in particular, Mocoa in Colombia, of being that quality of an asset that could actually move the needle. And I think when you invest in a company like Libero that's got an asset that's tier 1 and it gets into the right development phase, it could actually move the needle on copper production. This stock could be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, because I like bringing that perspective even when we're looking at evaluating projects, right? Because I don't want to invest money in projects that I don't believe can be future mines. And you see this big, gigantic supply-demand gap, right? And it's always the same, right? You can build 80 small projects, or you can build a couple big, really, really big ones. And at the end of the day, they're going to be built by major mining companies, and they're going to want big projects, right? Because they have limits in their staff and their management. It's easier to manage a very large project than 10 small ones. And so that is what kind of that tier 1 means. You're looking easily over 1 billion tons of material, right? That can actually move the needle, right? That can be producing, that 100,000 to 200,000 tons of copper a year. Remember, the gap is 5.4 million tons. So, you're going to need several of these size projects. So it's pretty simple math. You divide it by how many can we build? 10, 20, and you divide that number, and that's the size. So you're really looking over those plus 1 billion ton type projects. You're looking for that 3 to 5 million tons of copper contained. You're looking for larger size projects. Sure. And then the other part that goes with it is, 90% of the world's copper is coming in from open pit porphyry copper mines. So if you need production in any time, I mean, look at Resolution, it still hasn't been built, right? And it's one of the biggest deposits because it's underground and it's a massive investment. If you need near-term production, you're looking for near surface, highly disseminated, good grades, and lots and lots and lots of pounds of copper included. So that's kind of the philosophy, even not even Macoa, but even if you look at Esperanza or Big Red, or the work we're doing this year at Big Red, is to answer those compelling questions. Can this become a mine? Can it be at least 200 million tons? Is it near surface? Is it disseminated grade? Is it hitting those kind of hurdles that gives it a chance to become a mine into the future?
Well, and I think we've hit some great bullet points where, really trying to get investors to be fully aware of not only the massive opportunity to be involved in the copper space. I mean, as investors, we go out and buy copper futures. There's all kinds of ways that you could buy. I wouldn't be surprised the next couple of years there'll be a copper mutual fund or something. But there's resource funds that people can buy. But really for the enterprising investor, the one that wants to go out and hand pick an individual company, that's where we come in and we sort of highlight. Okay, here's Libero Copper, high quality management team, a great project. And not just one, but a portfolio of copper projects. And then third is the price. We always have to look at the price as investors. So we got a very low market cap, a $20 million market cap company. And I think that's where, just to wrap up, where the flow through comes in. And we got really excited to see this flow through offering, because not only can we invest in the company, but we also get a tax credit. For our listeners, flow through is very simply is an encouragement by the government for resource companies to invest. So you invest in a flow through share and you get a tax benefit. And it's great to see the demand is real high, but investors don't have to buy the flow through; they can just buy Libero on the market. So maybe to wrap up, just talk a little bit about the interest. I know from our end, it's been quite high, and the interest in Libero Copper.
Yeah, so we really didn't want to have to do a financing at these prices. We thought it was kind of some exterior, things going on within, general broader market. But we really wanted to advance the Big Red project, and you can't just, you need those flow through dollars. It's just nonsensical to use hard dollars, because it creates such a massive benefit for people that want to participate. And so we've seen heavy demand for our flow through, because I think people see it. Not only do they get the benefit, but here they're getting a huge opportunity, right? They're getting kind of a 2-for-1 in terms of tax credit, flow through, and then they also have shares at the end of the day. So we've seen, excessive demand for participation in this financing, which has been great. And the truth is, because the Golden Triangle, it's semi-seasonal. And we really have a compelling reason to be drilling this year, right? And people don't know the Big Red project. We went through, it was a discovery in 2020. We followed it up with core drilling. We hit all these holes, 80% of them coming back entirely mineralized. But the grade was just marginal. And we're saying, but where the heck is all this mineralization coming from? We flew geophysics right at the end of the year. And lo and behold, there's a big triangular size potassic anomaly directly to the east, where we felt that was where the mineralization was coming from. That could be the intrusive that brought in all this mineralization. So we have to test this target, and so that's what we're doing this year. We're going to be plugging some holes into the center of the heart of this, because again, you're looking for big, right? So if our thesis is correct, then Big Red is really off to the races, because it's got the size component. The even mineralization last year was directly from surface. We had 500 meters completely mineralized, so it's checking all of the boxes. So this one could really bring this project home and really, really transform it and become 100% bona fide, real opportunity to become a future mine. So that's why we pulled the trigger and said, we got to do this flow, take advantage of the flow through, and get this project moving forward.
That's great. Well, I can tell you from our end, there's a handful of investors on my side that are quite happy that you did pull the trigger. So I've been here with Ian Harris, the Chief Executive Officer of Libero Copper. We've covered some great things, Ian, the overall fundamentals of copper, the projects in South America, the projects in British Columbia. So obviously we wish you all the greatest success on the upcoming drill program. And thanks for taking the time this morning.
Thanks, Sherman. And just to leave this, because we've kind of been walking around it to give that perspective of the opportunity, right, is that, Macoa contains 600 million pounds of moly, right?
Wow.
500 million pounds, 500 plus million pounds of moly. And it's open in all directions. This is only the start of the project. World moly production is 600 million pounds per year. So it gives you the idea of the quality of assets that the company has in it. And then we have, 3 quality assets. It's an unbelievable opportunity. I think it's not going to come around again.
I totally agree. And I think, as you said earlier, and we've all been in situations like that when we look back 5 years or 3 years, why didn't we buy that at 30 cents? And I think, Libero Copper that's why we're buying it. So, and we're encouraging our listeners. So, once again, thanks for the time. And I hope I see you in Vancouver in the fall, because that's when some of the shows are going to start up again.
I will start. I'm always moving around. I like being here because I feel this is where I can make the most impact after 15 years in South America, and I like being part of the project. So, but I always make sure I get up and say hello.
Well, if I don't see you in Vancouver, maybe I make another trip to Colombia. Thanks for your time, Ian.
Great idea. Cheers. Thanks, Sherman.